that's all I'm going to play for you, and if you want to watch more of it, you can look up Ben Chan Tchaikovsky. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit today is how to achieve beautiful tone. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of what I do. The first thing that you need to do if you want to achieve beautiful tone is to allow your violin to ring. And so what I'm doing is I'm not over-pressing. What I'm actually doing is I'm kind of under-pressing. So when I start, what I do is I try to start with as little pressure as possible and then kind of add very, very, very slowly. So there's two ways to approach it. Either you approach it from the top, which is to start with very little pressure and then increase it, or you can start from the bottom with a lot of pressure and then decrease it. Now if you're looking for a very dark and rich tone, like let's say from the Franck Sonata, second movement, then what you want to do is start with, from the bottom up, start with heavy pressure and then relax. And so I'm starting with a lot, but then to avoid scratching and pressing, what I'll do is I'll back off as soon as I start. I'll start with a lot of pressure and back off, and then my hand kind of knows how much pressure to use. So I'll start and then relax, and your hand will kind of find that happy medium as you're relaxing and increasing pressure, decreasing pressure. You'll find that inner medium balance. And so the same thing holds true when you're starting something like this. What I'm doing is I'm starting with very little pressure and increasing until I decide that, okay, that's enough pressure, now I'm going to back off. And then I'll kind of do this. So it's kind of like when you pull a spring and you let it go and it goes, you know, that wave action. And so at the very end of it, it'll find its way so that it's just barely moving and it's adjusting itself. Another analogy you can use is when you're driving and you're making a turn. If you turn the wheel enough, you kind of get to a point where if you keep your hand in the right spot and just kind of move it a little bit, you can keep on that turn. Well, that's what I'm trying to demonstrate here, is that you can do the same thing with violin. So when you start, that's about the right amount of pressure that I want to have in order to achieve that sound that I want. And so when I'm going through, I also want it to swell. I want it to go da-da, and then back off. So I'm going to try to put that into practice. And then what I do is I relax and keep pulling my bow, because if you don't pull your bow, you don't get any sound. So then relax, keep pulling your bow, and then start going. Okay. I'm using my bow to dictate the swelling, and I'm using the pressure to dictate where that spring is bouncing. And so maybe I'm pulling the spring a little bit and saying, now I want you to bounce here, now I want you to bounce here. And so during that swell, I kind of go like this. I kind of go bounce, 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 bounce down here with more pressure, bounce, bounce, leave a little bit less, or take away some pressure and let it bounce here. So. Okay, and I also need to remember where in the phrase the peak happens, because I don't want to add too much pressure. I want to save it until the peak comes. So, not yet. Okay, that's where I decided the peak was, is on that E. So, and then as you hit the peak, you do need to come back down. So you can't keep sustained. It's overbearing. And so what you want to do is hit it. Now I don't want to back off too much, because there's still a bit of the phrase left. What I'm thinking is da 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 ba da da ya da 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 ba ya da. So it kind of coasts itself out like a roller coaster getting to the top, and then well, I guess it's not really a roller coaster because it's being nice coming back down. But so, and then those special moments, I do the same thing when I was talking about pressure and starting with very little pressure and then adding pressure. I'm doing the same thing with my bow. The amount of bow that I'm using, I start with very little bit of bow as I'm coming to that B, which I want to be special. I start the up bow with very little bow. And I think that gives it a very interesting and special quality. So that little gesture afterwards, that's when I move my bow through. So again, so everything put together. Now, I apologize, this is a little bit mumbo jumbo even, but that's the best way that I know how to explain it and demonstrate it at the same time. Let me just do it one more time for you so that you can kind of put these thoughts together.